Jamal's hands trembled as he adjusted the final wire on his project. A homemade air purifier that gleamed under the fluorescent lights of the city's Grand Convention Hall. The hum of voices and the clatter of display boards filled the air. But Jamal felt alone, a single island in a sea of expectation. He glanced at the other contestants, some with parents fussing over them, others laughing with friends. Jamal's mother had kissed his forehead that morning, whispering, "Show them what you're made of, baby." He clung to those words now, his heart pounding. A shadow fell across his table. The security guard, broad-shouldered and unsmiling, eyed Jamal's project with a smirk. "You sure you're in the right place, kid?" he said, voice loud enough to draw attention. Jamal swallowed, forcing himself to meet the man's gaze. "Yes, sir, I'm a finalist." The guard's lips curled. "Finalist, huh? Didn't know they let just anyone in these days." A few heads turned. Jamal felt the heat of their stares, the weight of their curiosity. He tried to focus on his project, but the guard leaned closer, voice dropping to a mocking whisper. "You build this yourself, or did someone help you?" The words stung, sharp as glass. Jamal's jaw tightened. "I built it, it's my design." The guard snorted, shaking his head. "We'll see about that." The crowd grew, whispers rippling through the hall. Some students looked away, uncomfortable. Others watched, eyes wide, waiting for the next blow. Jamal's cheeks burned, but he stood his ground, refusing to shrink. The guard's laughter echoed, bouncing off the marble walls. "Don't get your hopes up, kid. This isn't a charity event." Jamal's vision blurred for a moment, but he blinked back the tears. He thought of his mother, his late nights soldering wires, the dreams he'd poured into this project. Was this all he was to them, a joke, an outsider, someone to be doubted and dismissed? As the murmurs swelled and the guard's words hung in the air, a single question thundered in Jamal's mind. What happens when the world refuses to see your brilliance? Jamal's world was a patchwork of hope and hardship, stitched together by the love of his family and the relentless drive that pulsed in his chest. Home was a cramped apartment on the city's south side, where the walls were thin and the laughter was loud, even when money was tight. His mother, Denise, worked double shifts at the hospital, her hands rough from years of scrubbing floors and changing sheets, but her eyes always softened when she looked at Jamal. She called him her miracle. The boy who asked questions about everything and took apart broken radios just to see how they worked. His little sister, Maya, was his shadow, trailing after him with a notebook full of doodles and dreams. Their father had left when Jamal was 8, a memory that still ached on quiet nights. But Denise filled the void with stories of black inventors and scientists, Garrett Morgan, Mae Jemison, George Washington Carver. "You come from greatness," she'd say, tucking him in. "Don't let anyone tell you different." School was both sanctuary and battleground. Jamal's mind raced ahead of the lessons, hungry for knowledge. But he'd learned to keep his hand down in class, to avoid the sideways glances and muttered comments. Some teachers saw his potential, others saw only trouble. But Mr. Alvarez, his science teacher, was different. He saw the spark in Jamal's eyes and fanned it with encouragement. "You've got something special, Jamal," he'd say, pushing a battered physics textbook across the desk. "Don't let this world dim your light." Jamal's best friend, Malik, was his anchor. Where Jamal was quiet and intense, Malik was all swagger and jokes, quick to deflect tension with a laugh. They'd grown up together, riding bikes through cracked sidewalks, dreaming of escape. Malik didn't care much for science, but he believed in Jamal, showing up after school to help solder wires or test circuits, even if he didn't understand half of what Jamal was doing. The city itself was a study in contrasts. Gleaming skyscrapers downtown, boarded-up shops in Jamal's neighborhood. Tensions simmered beneath the surface, flaring up in headlines and whispered warnings. Jamal had seen the way store clerks watched him, the way police cruisers slowed when he walked home from school. He'd learned to keep his head down, to move carefully, to be twice as good for half the recognition. But science was his refuge. In the world of circuits and equations, there were rules, logic, and the promise that hard work could lead to discovery. Jamal spent hours hunched over his desk, sketching designs, scavenging parts from old appliances, and watching online lectures late into the night. His projector portable air purifier powered by solar energy was born from necessity. Maya's asthma had gotten worse, and the air in their neighborhood was thick with pollution. Jamal wanted to build something that could help her breathe easier, something that could make a difference. The science fair was more than a competition. It was a lifeline. Winning meant a scholarship, a chance to attend the city's top STEM academy, and maybe, just maybe, a way out for his family. Denise had scraped together the entry fee, and Mr. Alvarez had written a glowing recommendation. Malik had helped him haul the project across town, cracking jokes to hide his nerves. "You're gonna blow their minds, man," he'd said, clapping Jamal on the back. "Just don't forget us little people when you're famous." But Jamal knew the odds. He'd seen the way judges looked past kids like him, the way opportunities slipped through fingers that didn't fit the mold. Still, he refused to let cynicism take root. He poured everything he had into his project, testing and retesting, perfecting every detail. The night before the fair, Denise found him asleep at his desk, soldering iron still warm in his hand. She draped a blanket over his shoulders, whispering, "You're already a winner to me." As dawn broke, Jamal dressed in his best shirt, nerves buzzing beneath his skin. Malik met him at the bus stop, grinning wide. "Today's the day, bro. Let's go make history." They rode in silence, the city rushing past, each lost in their own thoughts. At the convention hall, Mr. Alvarez greeted them with a proud smile, pressing a lucky coin into Jamal's palm. "For good fortune," he said, "and because you make your own luck." Inside, the fair was a whirlwind of color and sounds, students bustling, judges conferring, parents snapping photos. Jamal set up his project, hands steady despite the storm inside him. He glanced at the other displays, some sleek and expensive, others humble like his. He caught sight of the security guard, already scanning the crowd, and felt a chill run down his spine. But Jamal straightened his shoulders, remembering his mother's words, Malik's faith, and Mr. Alvarez's belief. This was his moment. He was ready to show them all what he could do. The hall buzzed with anticipation, the air thick with possibility. Jamal took a deep breath, heart pounding, as the first judge approached his table. Jamal carefully arranged the solar panels and clear plastic casing of his air purifier, making sure every wire was tucked neatly, every label straight. He glanced at the other project's robotic arms, chemistry experiments, a drone with a polished logo. His own display was modest, but it gleamed with the pride of countless late nights and stubborn hope. A few students wandered over, curiosity flickering in their eyes. One girl asked about the purifier's design, and Jamal's face lit up as he explained the science behind it, his words tumbling out in a rush of excitement. But the moment was short. The security guard, the same one who'd eyed him earlier, strode over with a heavy step. He stopped in front of Jamal's table, arms crossed, gaze hard. "You again," he said, voice loud enough to draw attention. "Let me see your badge." Jamal fumbled for the lanyard around his neck, holding it up. The guard snatched it, inspecting it as if searching for a flaw. "You sure this is real? Looks like you printed it at home." A hush fell over the nearby tables. Jamal's cheeks burned. "It's real. I registered weeks ago." The guard's lips twisted into a sneer. "And you built this, all by yourself?" Jamal nodded, trying to keep his voice steady. "Yes, sir, I did." The guard scoffed, turning to the small crowd that had gathered. "You hear that? Kid says he built this thing. What do you think, folks? Should we believe him?" A few nervous laughs rippled through the group. Jamal's hands clenched at his sides. "I can show you how it works," he offered, voice barely above a whisper. The guard shook his head, waving him off. "Save it. I've seen enough scams in my day. You kids think you can just waltz in here and fool everyone. Not on my watch." A woman in the crowd pulled out her phone, recording as the guard's words grew sharper. "You know, there are rules for a reason. Maybe you should stick to what you know, huh?" The implication hung heavy in the air. Jamal's heart pounded, his vision swimming. He looked for Mr. Alvarez, for Malik, for anyone who might step in. But the crowd just watched, silent and uncertain. The guard leaned in, voice dropping to a low, mocking tone. "You want to impress people? Try being honest for once." Jamal's breath caught. He wanted to shout, to defend himself, but the words stuck in his throat. The guard straightened, tossing the badge back onto the table. "Don't cause any trouble. I'll be watching." As the guard walked away, the murmurs began, soft, sharp, cutting. Jamal stared at his project, the pride he'd felt moments before replaced by a cold, hollow ache. The woman with the phone lowered her camera, her eyes meeting Jamal's with a mix of sympathy and uncertainty. Around him, the fair buzzed on, but Jamal felt exposed. Every eye a judgment, every whisper a wound. He tried to focus, to remember why he was here, but the humiliation clung to him like a second skin. Malik appeared at his side, jaw tight, eyes flashing with anger. "You okay, man?" Jamal nodded, but the lie tasted bitter. Mr. Alvarez approached, placing a steadying hand on Jamal's shoulder. "Don't let him get to you. You belong here. Remember that." But as Jamal looked around, he saw the doubt in some faces, the skepticism in others. The woman who'd recorded the incident hesitated, then slipped away, phone in hand. Within minutes, the video was uploaded first to a local community page, then shared and reshared, the comments multiplying. Some condemned the guard, others questioned Jamal's place at the fair. The story was out, and Jamal's humiliation was no longer private. As the notifications began to buzz and the whispers grew louder, Jamal wondered if his dream was slipping away before it had even begun. The video of Jamal's confrontation with the security guard spread like wildfire. By the time the science fair ended, it had already racked up thousands of views on social media. The footage was grainy, but the audio was clear. The guard's mocking tone, the crowd's uneasy silence, Jamal's quiet dignity. Comments poured in, some furious, others dismissive, and a few outright cruel. Jamal sat on the edge of his bed that night, phone in hand, scrolling through the endless stream of reactions. His mother hovered in the doorway, worry etched deep into her face. "Don't read those, baby," she said softly, but Jamal couldn't look away. "For every message of support and inspiration, don't let them stop." There was another that stung. Maybe he cheated. Why is this even news? Just another kid playing the victim. At school the next day, the atmosphere was electric. Some students high-fived Jamal in the hallway, calling him a hero. Others avoided his gaze, whispering behind his back. Malik walked beside him, shoulders squared, daring anyone to say something out loud. You know they're just jealous, right? Malik said, trying to sound casual. You're the only one making headlines. But Jamal felt exposed, as if the whole world was watching and waiting for him to slip. In class, Mr. Alvarez tried to keep things normal, but even he seemed distracted, glancing at his phone between lessons. After the bell, he pulled Jamal aside. You handled yourself with grace, he said. Don't let this define you. Let your work speak for itself. The school administration, however, was less supportive. The principal called Jamal and his mother into the office. Her tone clipped and formal. We're aware of the incident, she said, folding her hands on the desk. We want to assure you that the school values diversity and inclusion, but we also ask that you refrain from making any further public statements. We don't want to escalate this situation. Denise bristled. My son was humiliated in front of the whole city. You want him to stay quiet? The principal's smile was tight. We're handling it internally. Please trust the process. Jamal left the office feeling smaller than ever. It seemed like everyone wanted the story to go away, everyone except the people who mattered most to him. At home, Maya drew a picture of Jamal standing on a stage, a gold medal around his neck. You're my hero, she said, pressing the drawing into his hand. Denise hugged him tight, whispering, we're proud of you, no matter what. But the pressure mounted. News crews showed up outside the school, hoping for a Some neighbors crossed the street to avoid the family, while others brought over casseroles and words of encouragement. Jamal's phone buzzed constantly. Reporters, activists, strangers from across the country. Some wanted to help, others wanted a story. The science fair organizers released a bland statement, expressing regret for any misunderstanding and promising to review procedures. The security company suspended the guard pending investigation, but rumors swirled that he'd been seen working at another event just days later. Online, the debate raged on. Some called for justice, others accused Jamal of seeking attention. Jamal tried to focus on his schoolwork, but concentration was impossible. Every time he closed his eyes, he heard the guard's voice, saw the skeptical faces in the crowd. He replayed the moment over and over, wondering if he could have done something different, something better. The anger simmered beneath his skin. Mixing with shame and doubt, Malik did his best to keep Jamal's spirits up, dragging him to the basketball court after school, cracking jokes, and blasting music. You gotta let it go, man, he said one afternoon, tossing Jamal the ball. You did nothing wrong. They're the ones who should be ashamed. Jamal nodded, but the words felt hollow. Mr. Alvarez checked in daily, offering extra help with assignments and reminding Jamal of his talent. You're not alone, he said. There are people who see you, who believe in you. Don't let them win. Still, the weight of expectation pressed down. Jamal's project was selected as a finalist, but the announcement was buried in the back pages of the local paper, overshadowed by the controversy. He wondered if the judges would even look at his work, or if they'd already made up their minds. One evening, as Jamal sat at his desk, staring at the blueprints for his purifier, Denise knocked softly and entered his room. She sat beside him, her arm around his shoulders. You know, when I was your age, I wanted to be a nurse. People told me I wasn't smart enough, that girls like me didn't belong in hospitals. But I kept going. You have to keep going, too. Not for them, for you. Jamal nodded, tears stinging his eyes. What if it doesn't matter? What if they never see me for who I am? Denise squeezed his hand. Then you show them anyway. You shine so bright they can't ignore you. The next day, Jamal returned to school, head held a little higher. He presented his project to the judges, voice steady, eyes clear. Malik stood in the back, giving him a thumbs up. Mr. Alvarez beamed with pride. For a moment, Jamal felt the old excitement return, the thrill of discovery, the joy of sharing his ideas. But the world outside the fair was still watching, still judging. The video continued to circulate, now picked up by national outlets. Hashtags trended, petitions circulated, and activists called for accountability. Some city officials issued statements of support, while others remained silent. The mayor's office declined to comment, fueling speculation and frustration. Jamal's inbox filled with messages, some hateful, some hopeful. A retired engineer offered to mentor him. A local business owner invited him to speak at a community event. But the threats and insults were there, too, lurking in the shadows. Late one night, as Jamal scrolled through his messages, a new email appeared. The subject line was simple: you're not alone. The sender was anonymous, but the message was clear. I saw what happened. I believe in you. Don't give up. Help is coming. Jamal stared at the screen, heart pounding. For the first time in days, a spark of hope flickered inside him. Maybe, just maybe, someone in power was finally paying attention. The mysterious message lingered in Jamal's mind for days, a lifeline in the storm. He reread it every night, wondering who had sent it and what help could possibly look like. Then, on a gray Thursday afternoon, the school secretary called him to the office. Jamal's heart thudded as he walked the long hallway, Malik trailing behind for moral support. Denise was already there, her face a mask of worry and pride. A city official in a crisp suit greeted them, introducing herself as Ms. Carter from the mayor's office. "The mayor would like to meet with you, Jamal," she said, her tone gentle but urgent. "He's seen the video. He wants to hear your story in your own words." Jamal's breath caught. Denise squeezed his hand, her eyes shining with both fear and hope. They rode in silence to City Hall, the car weaving through traffic as the city's skyline loomed ahead. Jamal's mind raced with questions. What would he say? Would the mayor really listen? Or was this just another attempt to smooth things over, to make the controversy disappear? The mayor's office was grand but welcoming, sunlight streaming through tall windows. Mayor Thompson, a tall man with kind eyes and a tired smile, rose to greet them. He shook Jamal's hand firmly, then gestured for everyone to sit. "Thank you for coming, Jamal. I know this hasn't been easy." Jamal nodded, nerves jangling. The mayor leaned forward, his voice low and sincere. "I watched the video. I saw the way you were treated. I want you to know, I'm sorry. That's not the city I want to lead." Jamal felt a lump rise in his throat. He glanced at Denise, who nodded for him to speak. He told the mayor everything: the months of work on his project, the excitement and fear, the humiliation at the fair, the aftermath at school and online. He spoke of his dreams, his family, and the weight of being doubted at every turn. The mayor listened intently, never interrupting, his expression growing more somber with every word. When Jamal finished, the mayor was silent for a moment. Then he spoke, his voice thick with emotion. "When I was your age, I was the only black kid in my science club. I know what it's like to be underestimated, to have to prove yourself twice over. I promised myself that if I ever had the power to change things, I would." He leaned back, eyes shining. "You shouldn't have to fight this hard just to be seen. I can't erase what happened, but I can make sure it means something. I want to address this publicly, not just for you, but for every kid who's ever been told they don't belong." Jamal's heart pounded. Denise wiped away a tear, her voice trembling. "Thank you, Mayor Thompson. We just want Jamal to have a fair shot." The mayor nodded. "He deserves that hand, so does every child in this city." He turned to Ms. Carter. "Let's organize a public forum. I want to hear from the community. I want people to know we're listening." As the meeting ended, the mayor shook Jamal's hand again, holding it a moment longer. "You're brave, Jamal. Don't let anyone tell you otherwise." Jamal left City Hall feeling lighter, hope blooming in his chest for the first time in weeks. Meanwhile, the city buzzed with new developments. The video had sparked a wave of stories. Other students and parents came forward, sharing their own experiences with the same security guard. Local news ran interviews with families who described similar incidents: unfair searches, harsh words, subtle slights. The guard's face was splashed across screens, his actions dissected and debated. The security company issued another statement, this time promising a full investigation. The guard was placed on indefinite leave, but the public demanded more. Activists organized rallies outside City Hall, calling for accountability and reform. Hashtags trended, petitions gained signatures, and the city's conversation shifted from Jamal's project to the broader issue of bias and discrimination. At school, Jamal noticed a change. Some teachers treated him with new respect, while others seemed wary, as if afraid to say the wrong thing. Malik grinned, slapping Jamal on the back. "You're famous, man. The mayor wants to hear from you." "That's wild." Mr. Alvarez beamed with pride, telling Jamal, "This is bigger than you now. You're making history." But Jamal felt the pressure mounting. He worried about saying the wrong thing, about letting people down. Denise reminded him, "Just speak your truth. That's all you can do." Maya drew another picture, this one of Jamal shaking hands with the mayor, a crowd cheering in the background. The city's anticipation grew as the mayor's office announced the public forum. Flyers appeared on lampposts. Social media buzzed with speculation. Would the mayor take real action, or was this just another empty promise? Would the security guard face consequences, or would the system protect its own? Jamal lay awake the night before the forum, staring at the ceiling, heart racing. He thought of all the kids who'd been silenced, all the dreams that had been dismissed. He thought of his mother's sacrifices, Malik's loyalty, Mr. Alvarez's faith. He thought of the mayor's words, "You're brave." As dawn broke, Jamal rose, determination settling over him like armor. He didn't know what would happen at the forum, but he knew one thing for certain: he would not be silent. He would speak for himself, for his family, and for every kid who'd ever been told they didn't belong. The city waited, breath held, as the mayor prepared to step onto the stage and face the truth. The city's main auditorium pulsed with energy, every seat filled, and the aisles crowded with people who refused to be left out. News vans lined the street outside, their satellite dishes pointed skyward, while inside, cameras perched on tripods captured every angle. The air was thick with anticipation, a mixture of hope, anger, and the electric charge of possibility. Jamal sat in the front row, his mother's hand clasped tightly in his, Malik and Mr. Alvarez on either side. Maya, too young to understand the full weight of the moment, clutched her brother's lucky coin and beamed up at him. The mayor took the stage first, his presence commanding but humble. He welcomed the crowd, acknowledging the pain and frustration that had brought them all together. "We are here," he said, "because something happened in our city that should never have happened. We are here to listen, to learn, and to decide what kind of community we want to be." His words echoed through the hall, met with a murmur of agreement. Jamal's heart pounded as his name was called. He rose, legs trembling, and walked to the podium. The lights were blinding, the cameras unblinking. But he drew strength from the faces in the crowd, his family, his friends, strangers, who had come to stand with him. He took a deep breath, remembering his mother's words. "Speak your truth. My name is Jamal Carter," he began, voice steady, despite the tremor in his hands. "I'm 16 years old. I love science. I built an air purifier to help my little sister breathe easier. I entered the city science fair because I wanted to show what I could do, to make my family proud, to maybe win a scholarship and change our lives." He paused, searching the crowd for understanding. "But when I got there, before I could even explain my project, I was stopped. I was questioned, doubted, and mocked. Not because of my work, but because of who I am, because of how I look." A hush fell over the room. "I know I'm not the only one. I know there are others who have been made to feel small, who have been told they don't belong. I'm here for them, too." Jamal's voice grew stronger as he spoke of the long nights spent building his project, the sacrifices his mother made, the pride he felt until it was stripped away in a moment of public humiliation. "I want to believe that hard work matters, that talent matters. I want to believe that this city can be better, but I need to see it. We all do." He finished to a standing ovation, the applause rolling over him like a wave. Denise wiped tears from her eyes. Malik whooped and pumped his fist, and Mr. Alvarez nodded, pride shining in his eyes. Even the mayor looked moved, his expression grave. Next, the security guard was called to the stage. He walked stiffly, jaw set, eyes darting around the room. The moderator asked him to respond to the video and the stories that had surfaced since. The guard cleared his throat, his voice defensive. "I was just doing my job. There are rules. I didn't mean to hurt anyone, but you have to be careful these days. You never know who's telling the truth." A ripple of anger moved through the crowd. A woman stood up, her voice shaking. "My son was stopped by you last year. You searched his backpack and made him cry in front of his friends. You never apologized." Another parent spoke up, recounting a similar story. The guard shifted uncomfortably, his confidence faltering. The moderator pressed him. "Do you understand the impact your actions have had?" The guard hesitated, then muttered, "I guess I could have handled things differently." The crowd was not satisfied. Voices rose, demanding accountability, demanding change. The forum opened to public comment. One by one, community members took the microphone. Some spoke of their own experiences with discrimination at school, at work, in stores, and on the streets. Others called for reform, better training, more oversight, real consequences for those who abuse their power. A few defended the guard, insisting he was just following protocol, but their voices were drowned out by the chorus of pain and frustration. A local pastor spoke, his voice ringing with conviction. "We are not here to destroy a man's life. We are here to build a better city. But we cannot do that if we refuse to see the truth. We cannot do that if we allow fear and prejudice to guide our actions." A teacher from another school shared how she'd seen talented students give up because they were never given a fair chance. "How many Jamals have we lost?" she asked, her voice breaking. "How many dreams have we crushed?" The mayor listened, taking notes, his face a mask of concentration. When the last speaker finished, he stood and addressed the crowd. "I have heard your stories. I have felt your pain. I promise you, this will not be ignored." But before he could continue, a commotion erupted near the back of the hall. A group of students, holding signs that read "Justice for Jamal" and "We Belong Here," began chanting. The energy in the room shifted, the crowd joining in, their voices rising in a unified demand for justice. The security guard, now visibly shaken, tried to speak again, but the moderator intervened. "We've heard enough. It's time for action." The mayor raised his hands, calling for calm. "I know emotions are high. I know trust has been broken, but I ask you to let me finish. I will not make promises I can't keep. I will not offer empty words." He paused, looking directly at Jamal, then at the crowd. "This is a turning point for our city. We can choose to sweep this under the rug, to protect the status quo. Or we can choose to face the truth, to make real change, even if it's hard." The room fell silent, every eye fixed on the mayor. He looked down at his notes, then back at the audience, his voice steady but heavy with responsibility. "I will announce my decision tonight, but know this. I have heard you. I have seen you. And I will not forget what I have learned here today." The tension was palpable, the outcome uncertain. Would justice be served, or would the system close ranks to protect its own? Jamal sat back down, his heart racing, Malik gripping his shoulder in silent support. Denise leaned in, whispering, "No matter what happens, you did the right thing." As the mayor stepped away from the podium, the cameras zoomed in, the crowd buzzing with speculation. The city held its breath, waiting for the verdict that would shape its future. The auditorium was thick with anticipation, the city's collective breath held in suspense. The mayor had retreated backstage with his advisors, leaving the crowd to murmur and speculate. Jamal sat with his family, his hands clasped tightly in his lap, Malik's steady presence beside him. Denise stroked Maya's hair, her own nerves barely concealed. Mr. Alvarez leaned forward, eyes never leaving the stage. The cameras panned across the audience, capturing the faces of hope, anger, and exhaustion. After what felt like an eternity, the mayor returned to the podium. The room fell silent. The only sound, the faint hum of the air conditioning and the distant click of camera shutters. Mayor Thompson's face was grave, but his eyes shone with resolve. "Thank you all for your courage, your honesty, and your willingness to speak truth to power," he began, his voice echoing through the hall. "Tonight, I have listened not just to Jamal, but to a community that has been unheard for far too long. I have heard stories of pain, of dreams deferred, of children made to feel invisible. I have also seen resilience, brilliance, and the unbreakable spirit of this city." He paused, letting the words settle. What happened to Jamal Carter was wrong. It was not an isolated incident, but a symptom of a deeper problem, a problem that we, as a city, must confront together. We cannot claim to value diversity and inclusion if we allow bias and discrimination to go unchecked. We cannot ask our children to dream big if we do not protect their right to be seen and heard. The mayor's gaze swept the room, landing on the security guard, who sat rigid and pale. "After a thorough review of the evidence and the testimonies shared tonight, I am announcing the immediate dismissal of the security guard involved in this incident. There is no place in our schools or public spaces for those who abuse their authority or undermine the dignity of our youth." A ripple of applause broke out, swelling as the mayor continued. "But this is not just about one person. It is about a system that has failed too many, for too long. That is why, effective immediately, we are launching a citywide initiative to combat bias and discrimination in all public institutions. Every security officer, teacher, and staff member will undergo comprehensive anti-bias and cultural competency training. We will establish an independent oversight committee to review complaints and ensure accountability. And we will create new pathways for students from underrepresented communities to access STEM programs, scholarships, and mentorship." The applause grew louder, some people rising to their feet. Jamal felt a surge of emotion, relief, vindication, and something like hope. Denise squeezed his hand, tears streaming down her cheeks. Malik grinned, pumping his fist in the air. Mr. Alvarez wiped his eyes, pride radiating from him. The mayor turned to Jamal, his voice softening. "Jamal Carter, you have shown extraordinary courage and resilience. You refused to let injustice silence you. You reminded us all of the power of one voice and the importance of standing up for what is right. On behalf of this city, I want to honor you not just for your innovation, but for your integrity." He gestured to a staff member, who brought forward a plaque and a scholarship certificate. "It is my privilege to present you with the city's Young Innovator Award, as well as a full scholarship to the STEM Academy of your choice. May your journey inspire others to follow in your footsteps." The crowd erupted, the applause thunderous and sustained. Jamal rose, stunned, as the mayor handed him the award. Cameras flashed, reporters jostled for position, and the audience chanted his name. For a moment, Jamal felt weightless, the burden of doubt and humiliation lifting from his shoulders. He stepped to the microphone, his voice trembling but clear. "Thank you, Mayor Thompson. Thank you to everyone who believed in me, even when it was hard. I didn't ask for any of this, but I hope it means that the next kid who looks like me, who dreams like me, won't have to fight so hard just to be seen. I hope we can build a city where everyone's brilliance is recognized, no matter where they come from." The applause swelled again, echoing through the hall and out into the city beyond. Reporters rushed to file their stories, headlines flashing across screens. "Mayor delivers justice in science fair scandal. Teen innovator honored after viral incident. City launches sweeping reforms." Outside the auditorium, the mood was jubilant. Strangers hugged Jamal, parents thanked Denise, and students snapped selfies with the new local hero. Activists celebrated the victory, but reminded everyone that the work was just beginning. "This is a step," one organizer said, "but we have to keep pushing for real, lasting change." News crews clamored for interviews. Jamal, still dazed, answered questions as best he could. "What would you say to other kids facing discrimination?" a reporter asked. Jamal thought for a moment, then replied, "Don't let anyone tell you what you can't do. Find your people, hold on to your dreams, and keep going even when it's hard." The mayor's reforms made headlines for days. The city council fast-tracked funding for the new oversight committee. Schools scheduled anti-bias workshops, and community leaders met to discuss further steps. The security company issued a public apology, pledging to overhaul its hiring and training practices. Other cities took notice, reaching out to Mayor Thompson for guidance. At home, Jamal's family celebrated with a simple dinner: fried chicken, collard greens, and Maya's favorite cornbread. Denise raised a glass of sparkling cider. "To Jamal," she said, her voice thick with pride. "To all the kids who never gave up." Malik grinned. "To the future, man, you earned it." But even in the glow of victory, Jamal felt the weight of responsibility. He knew that for every headline, there were still kids struggling in silence. He thought of the stories shared at the forum, the faces in the crowd, the dreams deferred. He promised himself he would use his platform to lift others up, to keep fighting for justice and opportunity. That night, as he lay in bed, Jamal scrolled through messages from around the country: students, parents, teachers, even scientists and engineers. Some shared their own stories of bias and perseverance. Others simply wrote, "Thank you." Jamal replied to as many as he could, offering encouragement and solidarity. The next morning, the city felt different. There was a sense of possibility in the air, a belief that change was not only necessary, but possible. Jamal walked to school with his head held high, Maya skipping beside him. Neighbors waved, cars honked in support, and classmates greeted him with newfound respect. In science class, Mr. Alvarez announced a new mentorship program, inspired by Jamal's story. "We're going to make sure every student has a chance to shine," he said, beaming at Jamal. Malik nudged him, whispering, "You started something, man. Don't stop now." Jamal smiled, the future stretching out before him, uncertain, but bright with promise. The city had changed, and so had he. The fight wasn't over, but for the first time, Jamal believed that justice was possible, that brilliance could not be denied, and that one voice joined by many could change the world. The days following the mayor's announcement felt like a new season had arrived in the city. The story of Jamal Carter, once a local controversy, now rippled far beyond the auditorium's walls. News outlets across the country picked up the story. Headlines celebrating not just the reforms, but the courage of a young black innovator who refused to be silenced. Jamal's face appeared on morning shows and magazine covers. His air purifier project featured in science blogs and national competitions. But the most profound changes were happening quietly, in the lives of people who had watched, listened, and decided to speak up. In the weeks after the forum, the city's new oversight committee opened its doors. The response was overwhelming. Dozens of students and parents came forward, sharing stories of bias and mistreatment, some recent, some buried for years. Their voices, once ignored, were now heard by a panel that included community leaders, educators, and youth representatives. The committee's first report was sobering, but it marked a turning point. The city could no longer pretend these were isolated incidents. The mayor's office released a public apology, not just to Jamal, but to every child who had been made to feel invisible. The reforms took root quickly. Security officers and school staff attended mandatory anti-bias training, led by experts who challenged them to confront their own assumptions. Teachers received new resources for building inclusive classrooms, and students were invited to participate in workshops on leadership and advocacy. The city's STEM programs expanded, with scholarships and mentorships earmarked for underrepresented youth. For the first time, Jamal saw kids from his neighborhood walking the halls of the city's top science academy, their eyes wide with possibility. Jamal's own life changed in ways he could never have imagined. Invitations poured in from universities, tech companies, and advocacy groups. He was asked to speak at conferences, to share his story with students and educators across the country. At first, the attention was overwhelming. Jamal was still the same kid who tinkered with wires in his bedroom, who worried about his sister's asthma and his mother's long shifts. But with each speech, each interview, his confidence grew. He realized that his voice mattered not just for himself, but for everyone who saw a piece of their own struggle in his journey. One afternoon, Jamal visited a middle school in a neighboring city. The auditorium was packed with students, many of them black and brown, their faces shining with anticipation. Jamal spoke about his project, about the night he almost gave up, about the power of community and the importance of never letting anyone define your worth. When he finished, a shy boy approached him, clutching a notebook filled with sketches. "I want to build things, too," the boy whispered. Jamal smiled, recognizing the same spark that had driven him. "You can," he said, "and if you ever need help, I'm here." Back home, Jamal's family found a new rhythm. Denise took on fewer shifts, her pride in Jamal a constant source of strength. Maya's asthma improved, thanks in part to Jamal's purifier, which now sat in their living room, a daily reminder of what was possible. Malik, inspired by his friend's journey, started a youth group focused on science and social justice, determined to make sure no one in their neighborhood felt alone again. Mr. Alvarez became a local hero, his classroom a hub for young inventors and dreamers. The community, once fractured by pain and mistrust, began to heal. Neighborhood meetings grew larger, with parents and students working together to hold schools accountable. Local businesses sponsored STEM clubs and after-school programs. The city's annual science fair, once a source of anxiety for kids like Jamal, became a celebration of diversity and innovation. For the first time, the winners reflected the true face of the city: black, brown, white, immigrant, native-born, all united by curiosity and hope. But the story did not end with Jamal's victory. The fight for justice, he knew, was ongoing. There were still challenges: resistance from some quarters, backlash from those who felt threatened by change. Not every story had a happy ending, and not every wound healed quickly. Jamal received his share of hate mail and online harassment, reminders that progress was never easy or uncontested. Yet he refused to be discouraged. Each time he faced doubt or hostility, he remembered the faces of the students he'd met, the letters from parents who thanked him for giving their children hope. Jamal also learned to lean on his community. He joined city youth councils, working with other young leaders to push for further reforms, better funding for schools, more mental health resources, safer streets. He collaborated with scientists and engineers, determined to keep building solutions for real-world problems. His air purifier, once a school project, was now being tested in homes and clinics across the city, with plans to expand to other communities in need. The city, for its part, continued to evolve. The Oversight Committee became a permanent fixture, its reports shaping policy and practice. The mayor's office established an annual Day of Brilliance, celebrating the achievements of young people from all backgrounds. Other cities reached out, eager to replicate the reforms and learn from Jamal's story. The ripple effect was undeniable. A single act of courage had sparked a movement, one that showed no signs of slowing down. As the months passed, Jamal found moments of quiet reflection. He would sit on the rooftop of his apartment building, looking out over the city lights, thinking about how far he had come. He remembered the fear and humiliation of that day at the science fair, the sting of the guard's words, the uncertainty that followed. But he also remembered the outpouring of support, the power of community. And the moment he realized that his voice could change the world, Jamal knew there was still work to be done. There would always be obstacles, always those who doubted or resisted. But he was no longer afraid. He had seen what was possible when people stood together, when one story became many, when justice was not just a word, but a promise kept. As he gazed at the city below, Jamal smiled, hope and determination mingling in his heart. The future was unwritten, but he was ready to help shape it, one invention, one story, one act of courage at a time. Jamal stood on the steps of City Hall, the evening sun casting a golden glow over the crowd gathered below. Reporters, students, parents, and city leaders all watched as he took a deep breath and stepped up to the microphone. His voice, once hesitant, now rang with quiet confidence. I used to think that if I just worked hard enough, if I just kept my head down, things would get better on their own. But I learned that sometimes, you have to stand up even when your voice shakes, even when you're scared. I learned that resilience isn't just about surviving what happens to you. It's about refusing to let anyone else define your worth. He looked out at the faces in the crowd, seeing hope, pride, and the same hunger for justice that had carried him through the hardest days. I didn't win this fight alone. My family, my friends, my teachers, and so many people I'd never even met, they stood with me. They reminded me that when we come together, we're stronger than any system that tries to hold us back. Jamal paused, letting the words settle. There are still people out there who will try to silence you, who will tell you that you don't belong. But you do. Your voice matters. Your dreams matter. And when you see something wrong, when you see someone being treated unfairly, don't look away. Speak up. Stand with them. Because change doesn't start with someone else, it starts with you. He smiled, the weight of the past months lifting as he spoke his truth. If my story has taught me anything, it's that we all have the power to make a difference. You don't have to be a mayor or a scientist or a hero. You just have to care enough to act. So I'm asking you, when you witness injustice, don't stay silent. Share your story, support each other, and never, ever let anyone dim your light. The crowd erupted in applause, the sound echoing down the city streets. Jamal's words spread far beyond that moment, carried by news broadcasts, social media, and the hearts of everyone who heard them. His story became a spark, igniting conversations in classrooms, living rooms, and boardrooms across the country. As the sun dipped below the skyline, Jamal turned to his family, his friends, and the community that had lifted him up. He knew the fight wasn't over, but he also knew he wasn't alone. Together, they had changed their city, and together, they could change the world. He left the crowd with a final thought, a quote that had guided him through the darkest times. Justice is what love looks like in public. He smiled, hope shining in his eyes. Let's keep showing the world what love and justice can do. Fade out on Jamal's hopeful face, the city behind him, alive with possibility, and the promise of a future shaped by courage, compassion, and the unwavering belief that every voice matters.